I'm Jyotirmay Sabat and I lead energy digitalization at Atria University. The energy landscape in India has changed a lot in the last 10 years. If you see in 2015, about 90% of energy supply was from coal or hydro sources and only 10% was renewable. But if you see now, around 46% renewable and coal and hydro only make up around the other 55%. So the idea is that the energy landscape has changed drastically from the supply side. On the demand side, more and more people, as the quality of life, as disposable income increases, more and more people are demanding a lot more energy. As more people own refrigerators, TVs, ACs, etc., we see a surge in demand for energy, almost 8%, 6 to 8% every year. Energy digitalization is not only a benefit of, for example, getting more out of the grid, it's also a necessity. So as I mentioned that almost 50% of our energy supply now comes from renewable sources. One of the key characteristics of a renewable source such as solar or wind is that they are not predictable, unlike coal or hydro where you can control the amount of coal being burnt per hour or the amount of water being let onto the pump at any hour. Solar and wind have some inherent unpredictability in their nature. So in order to seamlessly integrate into the grid, we do need advanced levels of monitoring, tracking, prediction, and so on. So energy digitalization is not only beneficial at the macro level, at the grid scale, but also at a micro level. So for example, if you think about your home, along with increase in demand, one other characteristic that we are also seeing as people want more control of their energy. So if you have a solar and if you have a EV car, for example, which is a very common characteristic in Bangalore or Delhi or Mumbai nowadays, a household having both these things would actually want to be able to be in charge of when they charge their EV, would not want to be part of any power outages and so on. Almost every house has a UPS system installed along with their solar. So digitalization actually helps people understand when they have excess energy, which can be stored in their battery, how much is being stored, how much they have left to utilize. And down the line, we will also probably see dynamic pricing, which is a common characteristic in countries like Europe, Australia, etc., which are ahead of India in the curve for renewables, which will in turn digitalization effort a lot more required, because then you can actually see when you can use electricity when it is priced cheaply versus store electricity when it is priced at a higher. Affordability can be an issue. So for example, installing a battery is quite expensive even now, even with the lithium prices having gone down a lot. You can see very inventive financing models that are available to consumers at every stage nowadays. And one of the key things to think about when you think about affordability is not just a 1 year or 2 year perspective, but actually a 10 to 15 year perspective. So 15 years down the line, if you look at the past 5 years, energy prices, your per kilowatt prices have increased so much, right? We don't really realize it because it happens every year or it happens at a short bursts. But 15 years down the line, you might actually be paying a lot more for your energy if you do not invest in sustainable and more comprehensive home solutions for your home at a minor scale. And the same thing for commercial industry and so on. So at Atria University, all of our courses in the energy sciences and e-mobility departments are focused on giving students a very real life experience of how these systems are being set up in today's world and how they are being envisioned in the world 10 or 15 years from now, including very tangible things like where do you put sensors in the system in order to get the most accurate readings, how do you use that data to sort of predict maintenance and so on going forward. I think the key thing here is that we don't just do the theory part of it, we actually put these sensors and understand like how solar systems will be set up and how do we get the most out of these. So as compared to a traditional university where the pedagogy focuses a lot more on a lot of theoretical understanding, which is helpful for sure, but I think what that misses out is having students ready for the workforce the day that they graduate. Most students, even in my generation, when I see, we spent almost a year and a half after we went into the workforce getting trained on actually how to do the work, right? So I think one of the benefits of the way that Atria University teaches or the curriculum that we follow is that students can be productive from day one or even during their internships that we have already experienced. So in digitalization, I think there are multiple areas where can get involved as they join the workforce. So one part I briefly talked about was actually looking at the supply chain and understanding which aspects need physical intervention in order to, for example, sensors that I talked about, where in the process do these need to be installed so that accurate data and observations can be recorded. That is a very integral part of anything that is being built on top of it. Of course, downstream, there are a lot more opportunities in AI, predictive modeling, and so on. I think the last part that I would talk about is a smart grid. So, for example, an overall smart grid has many components to it, including, for example, blockchain-based peer-to-peer energy trading, which may sound like a futuristic concept, but honestly, there have been too many pilots even done now, and government is sort of pushing towards it as we are talking right now. So in the next couple of years, you would see a lot more transition of people from being passive energy consumers to being active energy participants, where they are owning their rooftop, they're owning a battery, they're trading excess energy, they're figuring out where, when to purchase, when to sell electricity. It's a lot more exciting future than what we've grown up with.